Greetings from the Seoul Incheon Airport, where we're on a 7-hour layover that's become a 9-hour layover because of a flight delay.
We're doing a clip show, otherwise known as highlights of our Asia 2023 tour.
We left off in Taedong as we entered, ending our bike tour. And after that, it's really been kind of downtime. I forgot I was a vlogger, so we don't have a lot of footage from there. So instead of ending our trip with a separate vlog for the last few cities, we're going to do a highlight reel. Of course, I started before Kat. I went to Cebu just about 2 weeks before Kat started the trip. While I was in Cebu, I gave a couple talks at the university. That's somewhere that I've enjoyed being in the past. I just like the UP Cebu campus and the department. It's been a fun place to hang out. I think my time in Cebu really highlights the difference between my travel style and everybody else's. What did I do when I was there? I wandered around the city. I found dinner and I found lunch, and I didn't do anything really vlog-worthy, and I think it shows in the video I made, but I enjoyed my time there nonetheless. On my way out of the Philippines, I spent 2 nights in Manila. My highlight there was seeing my friend Garrick, who's gone back to the Philippines and started the brewery. Seeing him again, seeing the cool work that he's doing at this brewery, it's just so good to see that happening in the Philippines, to see it happening in Manila, and to see him again was awesome. From Manila, I went to Bangkok and I met Kat and Eunice and Jamie there, and we became the group of 4 that spent most of the trip together.
One of the big highlights for me was having really good seat luck at the very beginning of the trip, where I had 3 seats to myself on a full flight, so I could actually lay down, go to sleep, and beat jet lag.
One of my highlights in Bangkok has to be FedMark. We went to Mark Wien's restaurant and had pad grapao. It was a good meal. It was fun to have the crazy spicy food with everybody. I feel like it also worked really well to have the sort of 2 cameras, and it was a fun video to edit and put together.
The best parts of Bangkok for me were the activities that took us to places in the city that we hadn't been to before. We had a few of those on this trip. First and foremost was a noodle tour with Gary, the Roman cook.
He took us to a part of the city that really I never would have gone to for any other reason, and to restaurants that I definitely never would have found on my own. I don't know if he's going to keep doing tours, but if he is, I would recommend that tour.
One of the things that we started doing on this trip was trying to hit up bars that were on the world's best bars list. We hit up Vesper in Bangkok, which was a great bar. Terrific drinks, and we had a good time. We got to have the broth that was 40 years old. So that was fun. We also scootered there and back, so that was also an adventure.
The other kind of weird highlight in Bangkok for me was taking the Grab scooters. Grab, for those of you who don't know, is sort of the equivalent of Uber in Southeast Asia. You can choose a car, which we usually did, or you can choose a scooter that Kat and I did a few times. A man in a scooter comes, you hop on the back, and he just blasts through traffic as a normal Bangkok driver would, and we got to have that experience. I'm glad I wasn't driving, but I'm really glad I got to do it. From Bangkok, we went to Penang. I think Penang was a city that we found a little bit challenging, just in that it was a small town. There wasn't a whole lot to do.
Penang has a history of being a food city, which it definitely was, but I would say it's more of a food town. It felt very small.
Probably my highlight there was a Red Garden Food Center. Penang's known as a food city, and it was a really cool collection of sort of hawker stall little restaurant deals where you could go and order whatever you wanted from the spectrum of food that they had at all these little stalls. Everybody gets together and has dinner. It was a nice mix, which I think is what Penang is.
One of the highlights was a speakeasy called Cocktails and Shots. The bartender there was awesome. He does the thing where he asks you what you like and he kind of creates a drink for you. Those were some of the best drinks that we had on the entire trip. I think the highlight for me was actually getting outside of the city, and Greg and I did a cycle tour in the countryside. So that was awesome. On the bike trip, we met an amazing couple, Bobby and John from Blue Dot Explore, who are taking a year or 2 off to just travel the world. So happy travels, guys.
From Penang, we went to Singapore, and the highlight of Singapore is just being in Singapore. I don't know why I like it. I don't know what it is about the city.
Singapore is just Singapore. It's always nice, it's always fun.
That's a nice break when we're traveling in Southeast Asia, to have a couple days of just everything's easy and calm. Because Singapore is a place with a little bit more money in it, it has a bunch of really nice bars. I think the highlight of the bars for me has to be Analog. It's a sustainable, vegan, they're doing everything with all of these restrictions, but somehow knocking out these amazing cocktails that were so cool.
They're using like crazy techniques to make fantastic drinks. They also have a 3D printed bar, which was really cool. And their bartender and staff gave us recommendations for other bars in other cities. So thank you.
If you're in Singapore, go to Analog. It was awesome. We also got to see our friend's brother Contan while we were in Singapore. I've met him a couple of times before when I was passing through Singapore, and it was nice for everybody to meet him and get to hang out with him and have dinner.
From Singapore, we went to Ho Chi Minh City, where we met up with Eugene.
And we were together as a group of 5 for at least a day. I don't know why I like Ho Chi Minh City so much. It's not the tourist destinations, it's not the history or whatever.
It's loud and crazy and hectic. Everything you want in a frantic Southeast Asian city.
It's a nice place to walk around and find a coffee with sweetened condensed milk and find some noodles on the street and sit on a little plastic chair. That's what Ho Chi Minh City is to me, and I like it, and I would happily go back anytime for that.
I was able to finally try banh mi opla for breakfast, which is basically a deconstructed banh mi on a sizzling platter. We also got to visit Pasteur Brewing, which is one of my favorite breweries in Southeast Asia. They have my favorite passion fruit wheat beer, which is still a fave. And we also got to go to Snuff Box. Thank you to Kate for that recommendation.
After Ho Chi Minh City, Kat and I left the group and we started our Taiwan bike tour.
The bike trip was the highlight of our trip.
If anything, for the whole trip, I think the bike tour was the highlight for me.
I've been wanting to bike the east coast of Taiwan since I've learned about Taiwan's bike culture and also that the East Coast is a big biking destination. We did a self-guided tour with Grasshopper Adventures Tour Company and they were fantastic. I cannot recommend them more.
We spent 4 days on the bikes with a few rest days in between. We did, according to the GPSs, 265 kilometers across those 4 days on the bikes. That's maybe not a lot if you're a serious cyclist, but for us, it was a good 4 days of cycling. Within the bike tour, I think the very first day, that coming down Taroko Gorge, the scenery was stunning and otherworldly. And of course, the whole ride was gravity assisted and really easy, so that was nice. That's probably the highlight for me, just the scenery on that day.
One of the highlights of the bike tour was the hospitality throughout. Everybody was just so friendly and so helpful.
The people are so nice and so helpful.
On our rainy, muddy day of biking, I got a flat tire. We pulled up on someone's front stoop and started changing the tire. They came out to see what we were doing. Everybody was super helpful, or at least we think they were super helpful. Their friends offered to put our bikes into their truck to take us to a bike repair shop, offering to Greg work gloves. They offered to be our backup plan in case they saw us on the road later, that they would help us.
When we would get to the hotel, and especially the day we got to the hotel all muddy and gross, the staff couldn't do enough. They couldn't wait to have our bikes rolled into the lobby and drip mud all over the place, even though I was trying to find a hose to clean everything up at least a little bit. The other part of the bike tour that frankly I loved was the day when it was raining. We were wet and the tires kicked up road grime onto us and we were dirty and gross, and Kat's tire went flat in the middle of it and we had to change the tube, and we did it and it was all awesome and I'm proud of us. Probably the standout meal of the whole trip was the one we had at Moon Sun Coast, which the tour company suggested and made the reservation for. I don't know what this guy is doing with the fine dining tasting meal out in the middle of nowhere for, by my mind, a shockingly low price, but I'm glad he's doing it, and it was a really cool meal to have. So as we ended the bike tour in Taidung, which was the last video that I posted, we really kind of forgot we were vloggers, and I think we were at that point winding down the trip in our mind.
In Taidung, we pretty much rested.
we had one full day in Taidung.
I think the main thing we did was to walk around the night market.
It's not going to get its own video just because there's not enough footage, but it was fun. Again, a nice place to sort of put our feet up, let the muscles recover a little bit.
And then from Taidung, we went to Taichung.
In Taichung, we had 3 nights, and again, we didn't really do much. At this point in the trip, we were really winding down. We met our friends Alan and Prazi, who we know mostly online. It was nice to see them in person and have a chat.
Thanks for meeting up with us, guys. It was great to see you.
We kind of ate a lot of Western food. It was really the first time in the trip we were not eating local most of the time, because I think in our minds, the trip was over at that point.
We got to go to a bar called Haven. Thank you, The Drinking Kiwi, Andre, for the recommendation. That bar was fantastic. We also just did a lot of souvenir shopping, which was great.
And we thought at that point we were done. We were taking the train into Taoyuan, which is where the airport is for Taipei, and the plan was to spend one night at the airport hotel and then move out.
And actually a highlight for me in Taipei was going to the airport when we didn't have to go to the airport, so we could just look around. You don't usually get to do that, and that was strangely fun.
It turns out when we got to Taoyuan, we had a little go left in us and decided what we really should do is take the MRT an hour into the city and go to a couple bars there that were on the Asia's top 50 bars list. We got a few last minute supplies to bring home at a 7-Eleven. And I'm glad we did. We really squeezed everything we could out of that last day. And that brings us here to Seoul, where we're on a layover. We'll see you back in Vancouver.